Mr. Clerk, would you call the order, please? Would you call the roll call? Mr. Clerk, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Hear you now.
Okay. This is the roll call for the work session for March 9th. The Honorable William Bill Edwards, Mayor.
Here.
The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
Present.
The Honorable Naima Gilliard, District 4. The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Present and accounted for.
The Honorable Councilmember Khalid, District 6. I think you were muted, but I saw you. Okay. Okay. Thank you. The Honorable Mark Baker, District 7.
Present.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you do have a quorum.
First agenda item, please.
First agenda item is item 1, 2021 legislative session update and tracking. Andrew Long, A.R. Long and Company.
Mr. Long?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, before we begin, can I just, a point of order, is the meeting streaming to the YouTube page?
Mr. Lethbridge, could you answer that question?
That is a question for Mr. Hammond as he manages the council meetings.
Is Mr. Hammond here?
Yes, he indicated in the chat, direct message that it is showing.
I found it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Go right ahead, Mr. Long.
Good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Long, A.R. Long Company. To the council, to Mayor Edwards, I appreciate everything that you all are allowing me to do and represent you. I am still somewhat running around the Capitol and working at the moment, but I do have a brief update that I can give you based on activity that I've been working on. Number one, I'm going to go to Fulton Industrial Boulevard. HB 445 is Representative Roger Bruce's bill, and we do have that bill out of the House and over to the Senate. That piece of legislation is now getting favorable support from the senators that make up the Fulton County delegation. And the posture we're currently in is that we need 6 signatures on that piece of legislation, and then it will simply go onto the local consent calendar for the Senate to vote on. And just so everyone will be on the same page, when you get on the local consent calendar, it's simply an up or down vote. However, someone could object to the local consent calendar, and that would bring that legislation off from being a local bill to being a general bill. Then it would be open to discussion and debate on the Senate floor, of which, if that happens, we are going to call for the vote. And we believe that we have the votes to get Fulton Industrial passed. And what the bill does simply is annexes the stretch of Fulton Industrial Boulevard into the city of South Fulton. Now, Mayor Edwards has been working, honestly, very diligently on this effort. I believe there was also a drive-through of the stretch of Fulton Industrial Boulevard that happened on Saturday morning with one of the legislators that are going to help influence the passage of HB 445. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. But I think we're at the point now where we have the ability to get the bill passed this session. Number 2, I want to move to heat-related youth sport injuries. And that piece of legislation has failed for this session. Number 1, I told you that, well, if I didn't tell you, the update is I spoke with Representative William Bodie, and William Bodie, who is still very supportive of the measure, is not personally carrying the bill. The bill is being carried by Representative Casey Carpenter, Republican, and I spoke to him and said, he told me, Andrew, we are going to get this legislation passed, but it's going to be the second year of this 2-year term. We're not going to do it this year. And I think he's working on the language to make sure that that's right, but he's also working to make sure that he has complete support on both sides. This is obviously not a partisan bill, but making sure that he has the proper support on both sides. So he will introduce it this session, but because crossover day has already happened, it's not going to happen this year. It'll be worked on a little bit over the summer, and plan is to pass the bill on next for the next legislative session. Number 3, renaming the John Robert Lewis Parkway. That bill is being carried by Representative Deborah Bazemore, and that measure is, I mean, literally, it's not a lot of work for me to do on that. That one is pretty simple, where street namings and road namings happen through the Transportation Committee, and it's all put on one bill together, and similar to local legislation, is voted up or down. So there'll be names on there for street names from all across the state, and this one will be one that is added. It will, however, the language will be South Fulton Parkway, and I heard from council members specifically saying that they wanted it to be a stretch of 166, and I used my influence to advocate for that, and I told them this is what we wanted, but they agreed unanimously that it is going to be South Fulton Parkway, because they felt that that stretch of road was larger and more representative of who Congressman John Lewis was. So they decided that unanimously. I only have a few more here. I know I'm going to have a quick report. Hold on. The next one is the T-SPLOST. We discovered during meetings with legislative council that the T-SPLOST does not need the City of South Fulton legislative delegation to be extended. You can reinstitute the T-SPLOST simply by having unanimous consent of all the mayors in Fulton County, number 1, but then number 2, your project list that the taxes would be paying for, the transportation project list would need to be different, but then approved by Fulton County, the county that the city lies within. And then from there, you take that consensus and you can restart the T-SPLOST. It doesn't need to be a bill or statewide legislation in order for you all to restart the T-SPLOST. So that is already underway, and it is my understanding that from the meeting of mayors that happened this past Friday, that Mayor Edwards has sent out somewhat of a timeline of things that the city needs to do in order to get the T-SPLOST done, but it won't take another bill that was needed to actually start the T-SPLOST. 2 more, strengthening candidate residency requirements. This particular legislation is going to be a charter fix. And when I talked to Chairman Roger Bruce, who is now chair of the legislative delegation, he said, Andrew, after crossover day, which this bill wouldn't be affected by crossover day because it's local legislation, we will go into the charter and we will fix the loophole and whatever change that we need to do, pass it through local legislation and get it done. We still have time to get that done. It hasn't been done yet, and no one has been assigned to it because the focus has been, especially with Chairman Bruce, Fulton Industrial Boulevard. But the delegation is committed to making this charter change and then putting it in Georgia code, codifying it through the code. Then finally, marijuana in Georgia, that doesn't affect us directly We're not moving any legislation directly as far as cannabis is concerned, but please know that there is a cleanup bill. And that bill will not extend the illnesses. It will not make cannabis recreational. Like there was a bill introduced to do that this year, but it died yesterday at crossover. But what it will do is it will add on some universities that will have permission to research with actual cannabis and not synthetics. And it will clarify the powers given to the commission. There is a Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission that received applications from entities who are interested in cultivating, growing medical cannabis here in Georgia. And that process is they're filtering it right now. There were over 100 applicants for that were interested in growing cannabis in Georgia, especially at $5,000 per application fee. They didn't expect as many applicants as they received. So they're filtering through that process now. And then there will be 6 licenses, of course. 2 will be Class A, which are 50,000 square feet facilities, and 4 will be Class B, which will be 100,000 square feet facilities. So they're filtering that process now to narrow the applicants and get those 6 licenses selected. At which point, even if you're not selected for a license, you will still be able to apply for dispensary. That's going to be a totally separate application process of its own. And that is to be determined. They have not set a date for that at this point. But the main priority right now is making sure the Fulton Industrial Boulevard bill, HB 445, goes through the Senate and gets to the governor's desk so he can sign it. And then that stretch from Hollowell Parkway down to Campbellton Road on Fulton Industrial will be annexed into the city of South Fulton. I certainly will yield for any questions, and I thank you again for the opportunity to represent you at the state capitol.
Thank you so much, Mr. Long. I have Ms. Willis, Ms. Gilliard, followed by Mr. Baker.
Thank you for recognizing me, Honorable Mayor. I have a question around the charter change. What charter change are you talking about?
The residency requirements that we are talking about strengthening, there's a loophole in the residency requirements, and we're working through that language to simply change that in the charter.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a statewide,
Right.
statewide language for. Yes, ma'am.
I understand the process. I understand the local process. I understand the difference between local and in general. I just wasn't aware that we had an issue with the residency. I don't recall us voting on that. I didn't realize it was an issue. Do you know what the issue is?
No, we're going through that language now. I did have a conversation with Councilmember Rao, and we did discuss it, but I'm going through the proper language now to make sure that the fix will be a simple correction, and it's simply whatever the requirements are for where you live in the district that you're going to run for. There was a loophole that she discovered, and we were trying to fix that. But I do believe that it was consensus that the council was in agreement to say, yes, that needs to be fixed. And that was added to your list of priorities because it was on my 2021 legislative agenda.
Okay. I mean, maybe I missed something. Did anybody else know about this loophole?
Well, let me say this. Ms. Rowell is coming up in a few minutes, and she can make clear that Ms. Willis is all right with you.
Okay. The other question with the Fulton Industrial legislation, how many signatures do we have now? I'm not asking for names. I'm just asking how many signatures do we have?
The bill has not been released by the committee chairman on SLOGO, Senator Lee Anderson. It has not been released for signatures, but it will be this week. The bill was asked to be held by Fulton Senate Legislative Delegation Chair Jen Jordan. She said, after crossover day, we will tackle this issue. I spoke to her today, and she said to me, we're good on all fronts. So the bill will be released for signatures this week, and we will need 6 out of 11 senators to sign the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gilliard?
I want to make a comment about South Fulton Parkway being named after John Lewis. I really and truly don't get it, particularly since this was not his district, and the district that he lived in was where it was requested. And so it just amazes me that people that are not even in the district, but who do have the ability to bring it forth and change it, I just don't get it. And I really don't get why it would even be South Fulton Parkway. If John Lewis was alive, he would tell you not to do it for a number of reasons. And so I'm really, really concerned about that. It's like a mixed message. That's not going to change what South Fulton Parkway has become. It is what it is.
Thank you, Ms. Gilliard. Mr. Baker? Mr. Mark Baker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to, well, I guess I'll wait until Councilwoman Rao explains the strengthening of the process, because I, like Councilwoman Willis, did have a question regarding that as well. But I'll move on to the other two. I wanted to know who championed the legislation regarding recreational marijuana, for one, cannabis rather, as well as I was advised that there was someone who also had legislation regarding reparations that was brought forth. And I just wanted to know those individuals' names.
Absolutely. First one is Micah Gravely, Representative Micah Gravely. He is a Republican from Paulding County. He is vice chair of the House Majority Caucus. Not caucus chair, vice caucus chair, but still puts him in leadership with the Republicans on the House side. Former staffer in Governor Perez's office, I believe, and has held his seat for I think about 10 years. He's a decent dude, and this was sort of his baby. He got the original bill passed, and now he has cleanup legislation that just passed the House on Friday and is now over in the Senate. But his name is Micah Gravely, and he is the one that's championing this legislation. Secondly, reparations. There's nothing concrete that specifically speaks to complete reparations. However, HR 12 supports Congress creating a study committee on reparations. That was HR 12, and I believe that bill already passed, but it simply House Resolution number 12. It simply says that we support Congress creating a study committee on reparations, which will happen over the summer. But I haven't, that, although it's not on our list of priorities, I did do that research for you because I knew you asked about it once before, but it's House Resolution number 12. And I'm glad to send it to you for your review.
Please do. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you do.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We have Mr. Reed, then Ms. Gums, and then Ms. Willis.
Did I get kicked out of the queue?
I got you. Yeah, you
Okay.
did. This is your name. I'm sorry, but it's not on here at all. But go ahead. Let me get you now, Ms. Rao. You were in there.
Very quickly, a couple things. The discussion around the residency requirement came as a result of kind of what we experienced with the whole residency challenge. Some things that I had actually mentioned in the meeting that we were all in. It was when we were on the agenda. Mr. Long is correct. It was part of our discussion when we were providing our legislative issues. I haven't heard from any members of our delegation as to what specifically or seen any draft legislation, but I think he mentioned they haven't started anything or assigned to anybody. And specifically is how they go about verifying when really all the documents, our legislation doesn't speak to it at all about verification in the event of a challenge. So they would have to look to state law, and our charter is kind of mute on the issue. Again, I can't speak to what, if anything, the delegation is. I got to update at the same time that you did. But we also want to speak to the naming of South Fulton Parkway. I totally agree with Councilwoman Gilliard. It's really a slap in the face to John Lewis. I know we have been working to, and this council passed legislation to look at the one federal facility, which is the post office in the Sandtown community in which he lived, along with the fact that we would miss a huge opportunity to celebrate that whole area, which we have 3 civil rights leaders. We have Albert Love, who lived in the same neighborhood, as well as Joseph E. Boone, all in walking distance to John Lewis. So to miss the opportunity to tell a story and identify area outside of our city, South Fulton Parkway, the majority of which is in Union City and not in the city of South Fulton, makes 0 sense, and it's outside of his district. That I'd rather them do nothing than not be thoughtful about how we're moving forward with that. Also, there's been an effort for years, even going back, efforts to lobby the city of Atlanta to change the name of Campbellton Road, which was named after Assistant Secretary of the Confederacy. If anything, we should want to change the name of Campbellton Road for that. And so I'm going to ask all our council members to really talk to the delegation, to really reconsider that, as well as residents, to express their disagreement with that. So they want to do something monumental, change the name of the road being named after a Confederate Assistant Secretary of the War.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And let me be, just in response real quick, let me be very clear. Okay. I work for you all. I work for the city of South Fulton. That's my role. Okay. I am contracted by you all to represent you. Now, there are 2 options that you will have. Number 1, we can delay this, okay, and discuss it more outside of the session and come back again next year. Or I could just have them kill it and say, don't do anything. I mean, I went to them on multiple occasions and they were pretty passive about the fact, well, Andrew, what else do you have? Like, what's next? We met about this. We discussed it. We voted on it unanimously. It's going to be South Fulton Parkway. What's next? And I said, okay. I mean, what can I, so at that point, I can only report back to you, but there are options. I mean, we can have the bill delayed. I can kill the bill itself and just, we come back and do it next year. I'm at your, whatever the pleasure of the council is, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Either way, I'd rather not move forward than to do the wrong thing. And I think this is the wrong thing.
I agree.
All right. I'm sorry you got kicked out, Ms. Rao, on the queue, but next we'll have is Mr. Reeves, Ms. Gums, and we'll end the conversation with Ms. Helen Willis.
Mr. Long, I want to thank you again for representing us down there. I want to call and speak to the dispensaries off of that, the cannabis bill. Well, different dispensaries, are there in certain locations? Is there a certain number? Or could you just fill me in on that? Fill us in on that? How
I
many dispensaries
cannot.
will be allowed per that?
Yep, I get it. I cannot, and let me tell you why. The commission, Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission, has an executive director. His name is Andrew Turnage, T-U-R-N-A-G-E.
Spell
And
again, sir. Spell again, please.
Andrew Turnage, T-U-R-N-A-G-E. He's executive director over the council, and I mean over the commission. I'm sorry, and that commission has not placed the new application requirements online for entities to apply for dispensary. The only thing we do know is that if you are one of the 6 that were selected for a license to cultivate, to grow in the state, if you get one of those licenses, you are allowed to have multiple dispensaries. But there's still going to be, if you were not selected as a licensee, there's still going to be another process after this process where entities can apply for dispensaries, but those parameters, the rules and regs of that have not been placed online yet. They're probably going through it now, but they haven't announced what those rules will be.
And who is responsible for the oversight of the dispensaries once they are in place and licensed?
That would be the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission. That would be this commission.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And just so you know, the commission is made up of, I think, 6 members, 2 by the governor, 2 by the lieutenant governor, and 2 by the speaker. So if you're asking me a political question, that might be your answer. That's.
I just wanted to know the oversight out there and the selection criteria, which you just provided, but I appreciate that, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Anytime.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Councilwoman Gum.
Mr. Long, thank you so much for your work that you've been advocating for us down at the Capitol. My first question, I know that we had talked about the short-term rentals, and we also talked about the traffic signal, well, not the signal, where we will be able to monitor truck traffic through installed cameras. And I saw your report, and I believe State Representative Bazemore is championing that. Do you have any idea if that will pass through, I guess, by the time they're finished with the session?
Now, okay, I understand the truck monitoring. What was the first one you said, Councilmember?
So no, that was the main thing that I'm concerned about. I do understand with short-term rentals. I'm assuming there's movement on that. If you can update me really quickly on that as well.
Yeah, short-term rentals, there is a bill. I don't know if it's going to receive favorable support, but it did cross over. So they have a vehicle. And that's why it makes crossover so important. Whether you agree with the language in the bill or not, at this moment, get it passed from one chamber to the next, then we can amend it once it gets to the other side. So there is a bill. And by close of business today, I will make sure that you have that bill number on short-term rentals. Now, what Representative Bazemore is going to author regarding the trucks, she has not spoken to me about that yet. We have questioned why the delegation hasn't met recently, and I think that's going to be solved this week. The delegation is going to meet either this week or early next, but yes, it does have time to pass this session, but I haven't discussed the progress report or status of exactly where that bill is. But I will discuss that with her this week.
Okay. And lastly, I definitely, hear my colleagues in regards to South Fulton Parkway. And I know that I had a short conversation with Representative Roger Bruce. Do we believe that we can at least have a slight meeting with our delegation to kind of voice our concerns because we have not been successful with having a meeting before they actually went into session. So after crossover, do you think there's a possibility that we'll have an opportunity to really communicate with them and address our concerns? Especially when it comes to
Agreed.
South Fulton Parkway.
Yep, agreed. Very good point. And of course, me being me, I wanted to do some kind of combined legislative lunch or dinner before the session started, but I think it was best for everyone involved due to the pandemic. Let's not meet at this time. But yes, some sort of, whether it's a virtual connectivity, whether it's a conference call, whatever the situation is, we can have some sort of communication between the delegation. I agree with you. I wasn't privy to what Councilmember Rao told me at the beginning, but once she explained it and exactly where he lives and why it would be so important to that community and the larger community as well, I get it, and I'm with you. But every time I brought it up twice to the delegation, and they were like, "Listen, this is what we want to do. We've already decided on it, and we agreed on it, voted on it unanimously." So yes, I understand your posture, and I can go back to the legislative delegation at this time, especially having almost daily meetings with the now chair, Representative Roger Bruce. I can express to him exactly how you all feel, what your thought process is, and try to confirm some sort of meeting or communication between the council, the city council, and the legislative delegation. I will do that, and I'll report back to either Ms. Jones or Mayor Edwards this week.
Ms. Gumbs, I'll also help to facilitate that for you.
I appreciate that because we can't say that we want to improve our relationships if we're not willing to talk about,
Okay.
the issues at hand. So thank you for that.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that okay? We'll conclude this conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Helen Willis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Long, for everything that you're doing on behalf of the city of South Fulton and the residents. Was there any reason why the heat stroke bill is having a challenge? They did have a meeting last year, not last year, the year before, about the heat stroke bill at Walkmart Park. Do you know what the opposition is?
If tragedy happens, tragedy is not defined by Black, white, Republican, Democrat. The purpose for this bill makes a lot of sense to me. I was shocked initially when I learned that Representative Bodie was not going to be carrying it. But it could be a larger play, as in one of the Republicans saying, we understand what this means, and we want to make sure that we get it right. If we're going to pass this, if we're going to agree with you, we want to make sure that we get it right. And candidly, it could also be a legislative steal. The reason why I didn't bring up the citizens arrest law is because I don't want to get too emotional right now, but the governor brought Representative Carl Gilliard into his office and said, throw your bill in the trash. Not in a disrespectful way, but saying, I'm going to champion this. I'll have one of my floor leaders do it. And it's kind of like now he is going to get the credit for saying, I'm going to, repeal the citizens arrest law in Georgia. It's moving, and it's probably going to pass, and he's going to sign it, but it's going to be done by one of his floor leaders instead of where the bill originally came from, Representative Carl Gilliard out of Savannah, Garden City, and who's been working on the legislation for at least 2 years. So,
Okay.
But that happened, and it could be.
You.
I'm sorry.
I say thank you. I'll follow up with Representative Casey. Let me make a comment on this John Lewis Parkway. First of all, I think the bill needs to be killed. Kill the bill. The Savannah is having the same issue where the mayor is trying to name The Savannah, they're trying to rename the Talmadge Bridge, Savannah Bridge, and he took it upon himself to put out that he wanted the bridge named after John Lewis. And the community is in an uproar in Savannah for the same reason. South Fulton Parkway represents nothing that about John Lewis. If anything, it represents everything that John Lewis fought against.
Mhm.
And so, I don't understand why nobody consulted with us. And South Fulton matters. And so this is where our residents need to start speaking up and getting involved and start writing your legislators and telling them this is not what you want. Campbellton Road is where this man lived, is where he raised his son, is where he lived with his wife, is where the community best knew him from. It represented everything about John Lewis. And so why would you go all the way on the other side of town in Congressman Scott district and name a parkway that does not represent anything that he stands for? And
Right.
so at this point, Mayor, yes, please organize a meeting, because they did not speak with the city council at all in this general. So we need a Zoom meeting with our delegation. And we need residents, because they don't listen to us. We need residents. We need you all to call them, email them, and tell them, do not name South Fulton Parkway after John Lewis. We will prefer Campbellton Road named after him, because that's where he lived, that's where he worked, and that's where he played. And frankly, that's where he died. So we off of Wallace Road. So this is ridiculous. And you heard from majority of this council saying that we don't want this to happen. So you have the information to take back to them to say, kill the bill.
All right.
And
Yes,
is this a general bill or a local bill?
No, it's a general bill. It will go through the Transportation Committee in the House, but once all the names are on there, it's just an up or down vote. What I would be doing is removing that particular name from the legislation.
So where is the bill now? Where is the bill now?
The bill should be in the House Transportation Committee. I'll double check that, but it should be in the House Transportation.
And so you're saying that right now, everybody needs, if we don't want this bill, we need residents to call and write and email the Transportation Committee and tell them to kill this bill.
No. That the bill itself, like I said before, the one piece of legislation will have 40 different renamings on there. And then toward the end of the session, once they have an agreement of everybody who wants to add whatever street name to what they want to do on there, then they'll pass one bill that represents all of those. What we need to do is, if you all don't, want the South Fulton Parkway renamed, then I need to remove that specific language from the bill. Like it'll say, and a resolution to do this, and whereas this, and whereas this, and the one particular whereas for South Fulton Parkway, just take that one out.
Well, you heard from five council members saying we heard from 6 council members saying we don't want it. And it's not that we don't want John Lewis honored. We do want him honored. We just want him honored we want him honored with the road that represents him and what he stood for.
Okay.
I will first go back to your legislative delegation with a more stern message of exactly what you all are telling me now. And I can tell by the passion that you are all speaking with that this is not a game, this is serious. And I will go back and relay that message to them, and hopefully they will listen. I can use all the influence I got. Hopefully they will listen and consider Campbellton Road and not South Fulton Parkway. If they do not, and they maintain their posture that is going to be South Fulton Parkway, I'll let them know that you all would rather kill that instead of renaming it after South Fulton Parkway. I will relay that message.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Long. We appreciate the job.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank
Before
you.
I go to the next item, some of you need to mute yourselves because I can hear your comments after people are speaking. So if you will mute yourself until it's time for you to speak. Okay, thank you so much. And Mr. Adams, next item, please.
Next item is item 2, reopening plan, public access to city facilities, parks, recreation, and cultural affairs. And this will be presented by the department as well as the Assistant City Manager, Mr. Toms.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to present this information in reference to our Phase 2 reopening plan for city facilities. Next slide, please.
Mr. Adams, are you controlling this?
Yes, is it visible?
Yes, can we proceed? It's not in presenter view. If we could do that, Mr. Adams, and proceed to the next slide.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Mr. Adams, the next slide is not coming up. Is there a technical problem, Mr. Adams?
Yes, it's up on my screen. Tony, if you could proceed forward, I'll get it up right away.
Go ahead, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of South Fulton Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs mission is to build community through high quality and equitable parks, trails, recreation, and cultural experience. The coronavirus pandemic has demonstrated the essential value of parks and recreation and cultural affairs. Based on the knowledge we gained over the last year about both COVID-19 and best practices for public health, PRCA has developed a comprehensive plan for in-person programming with detailed COVID-19 guidelines and modified participation to safely re-engage residents starting April 5th, 2021. The programs fall into several basic categories, and all of these categories have been selected because of the ability to facilitate in-person low-risk programming with social distancing and what we call pod modeling implemented. That includes athletics, youth baseball, adult kickball, aquatics, pickleball, youth track and field, youth and adult tennis. And I'll go into more detail as a moment as we go through this presentation. We do have a mini camp, summer camp model that incorporates youth recreation camp as well as youth and middle school arts camp, again, socially distanced. We have a series of outdoor events, outdoor environments being better and healthier, including fitness in the park, our PRCA Goes Mobile program, sports clinics, farm fresh fitness, art in the park, and youth fishing kickoff. Cultural affairs, of course, will offer several scaled down and social distance offerings, including digital photography, modern and jazz dance, art adventure, poetry, and guitar lessons. And lastly, small pavilion rentals for residents with 10 people or less, as well as virtual recording. That allows dance instructors, people of that nature, to rent a space to record something to be broadcast virtually. That is intended primarily for individuals and small groups. Next slide, please, Mr. Adams. Athletics. We will provide low-risk sports opportunities for residents. Low-risk sports are categorized as sports that can be done.
Excuse me a minute. Excuse me a minute. If you're not been asked a question, please mute yourself. Go right ahead, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, sir. Low-risk sports are categorized as sports that can be done with social distancing or individually with either no sharing of equipment or the ability to clean and disinfect the equipment between each use by participants. General parameters include reducing overall participation numbers to incorporate social distancing. All indoor facility operations will remain closed. All indoor activities, training, practice, and all contests and games are still prohibited under this phase 2 reopening. Coach training and practices for individual water sports such as swimming and diving are allowed indoors in accordance with CDC guidelines for spas and pools. We looked into this very closely. CDC currently states that they are not aware of any specific scientific reports of the virus that causes COVID-19 spreading to people through water in pools, hot tubs, water playgrounds, or other treated aquatic venues. Next slide, please. The next slide is in reference to reestablishing athletics. I referenced earlier youth baseball, adult kickball, aquatics. I just referenced pickleball, which is an activity primarily for seniors, but all active adults, youth and adult tennis, and youth track and field. These were specifically identified for this phase of reopening because all of these can be safely done with social distancing incorporated. As an example, tennis is generally played at more than 6 feet as the game is normally played. Same thing with youth track and field. And so these activities will allow us to begin to re-engage our citizens, youth, and families while doing so in a safe manner. Next slide, please, Mr. Adams. We've come up with a mini camp model for summer camp for the 8-week summer camp period. Mini camps will offer a safe environment for campers to engage in fun, outdoor, primarily recreation and arts programs in this COVID-19 climate. CDC guidelines for youth programs and the governor's executive orders for operation of day camps have been incorporated into the development of our mini camp series. Some of the basic parameters of what we call our pod model is 5 to 8 campers per pod. We will conduct a daily health screening for staff and children upon arrival and departure. I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail in just a moment. Groups will stay consistent during the entire week. That's important. The pod model keeps 5 to 8 campers in a single pod for the entire week with a single counselor / instructor, and it prohibits congregating among campers belonging to different groups. So the children, the campers in pod A do not directly interact with the campers in pod B, pod C, and so on to facilitate the social distancing I've referenced earlier. We will sanitize bathrooms, equipment, and all frequently touched surfaces regularly throughout the day. In addition to after hours, we specifically have been purchasing equipment to facilitate that over the last several months, including some of the CARES Act funding. And all participants, regardless of age, must comply with face covering requirements. Masks may be removed when engaging in vigorous outdoor activity, and of course for things like lunch and other periods. Next slide, please. These are the locations for our summer camp mini-series. Welcome All will have 25 participants per week. Burdette, 25 participants per week. Sandtown Recreation Center, 25 participants per week. And at the Southwest Arts Center, 32 participants per week. These numbers were specifically identified because they allow for adequate social distancing within those specific facilities at those designated participation numbers. Next slide. We also have incorporated a series of outdoor events. Our residents will be able to enjoy these socially distanced, strategically placed throughout 7 districts, all 7 districts. The general parameters for all outdoor events are pre-registration is required. That allows us to manage numbers and make sure that we can, again, social distance and keep everyone safe. Maximum event participation in an outdoor environment will be 50 participants. Activities, circles, or squares, as you see depicted in this picture, will be utilized to facilitate distancing participants. All indoor facilities, again, will remain closed, and all participants, once again, will be required to comply with face covering requirements when engaged in these activities. Next slide, Mr. Adams. This is a brief summary of some of those outdoor events, as I mentioned earlier. Fitness in the Park is a new series of health and wellness classes done outdoors at various locations throughout the city to help residents get fit and have fun. We developed our PRCA Goes Mobile. In the previous slide, you may have noticed our PRCA mobile vehicle. And what we plan to do with that is bring recreation and arts program to communities. So that mobile rec unit will be on the road going to various communities throughout South Fulton to make sure we can connect in a safe outdoor environment with communities across the city. See South Fulton is an interesting digital photography program where we encourage citizens to go out into the beautiful landscape of the city of South Fulton, capture their imagery and submit it online each week. And then individual sports clinics where we will, in a low number participation, socially distanced model, provide some training and skill set enhancement that can be done individually, fun, safe, and socially distanced. Next slide. Farm Fresh Fitness, as you know, we have all types of diversity in the city, and we have a healthy agricultural presence as well. So we want to combine with several of our local farmers to combine mindful fitness with healthy eating and work on agricultural activities with grains, fruits, and vegetables. We've done a box project before, garden box project before, and we will look to incorporate that in our Farm Fresh Fitness. Art in the Park, we're going to work with several of our artists in the community to bring opportunities outdoors in the park for citizens to engage in creative, fun art projects in the park as well. Youth Fishing Kickoff. This is an exciting program for us. Youth participants will have an opportunity to enjoy the great outdoors while learning the ageless art of fishing. We have a lake, as many of you may be aware, at Trammell Crow Park. We have been working with the Department of Natural Resources over the last several months. The lake is being managed, being stocked with fish by the Department of Natural Resources. And we're partnering with them on some fishing programs that we will bring forward as part of our spring kickoff for youth in our community. And Juneteenth, as you know, the council passed a resolution making Juneteenth a citywide holiday, and the staff is currently working on a Forward to Freedom theme for the week of Juneteenth. Additional details will be forthcoming for that week, June 14th through the June 19th for Juneteenth. Next slide, please, Mr. Adams. Arts and cultural programs. The department will allow residents to enjoy in-person cultural opportunities as well in a safe social distance setting. Again, 8 participants maximum, registration for each class, no shared equipment, modified class setup. All participants will again wear face coverings and participate in daily check-in requirements. Next slide. This is just an example of our spring registration flyer listing some of the classes that will be offered, including inner healing stretch, movement and balance, balance and art adventure, teen acting and group guitar, jazz and dance, modern dance, digital photography, and at-home hand building pottery. Next slide. We will add additional parks to phase 2 for passive use only. That includes Sandtown, Cliftondale, Canine Crossing Dog Park, the Burdick Tennis Center, which will be managed by staff, Welcome All Park, Trammell Crow Park, Wilkerson Mill Park, and Quill Park. Next slide. This is an example of the safety protocols that we've really done our due diligence on to ensure that we could do this in a way that keeps our community safe. There will be a check-in procedure. Prior to arrival, participants, parents, coaches, and/or instructors will be asked to alert our staff if they're showing any symptoms of COVID-19. If possible, the same parent or designated person should drop off and pick up participants each and every day. We will be doing a daily health screening for COVID-19 that includes staff members that's already in place, and they will conduct screenings while wearing protective equipment. We have sourced, as you may be aware, PPE for all staff and maintaining 6-foot distancing. We've also put a contact tracing model in place. The CDC defines close contact as individuals who was within 6 feet of an infected person for at least 15 minutes, starting 2 days before illness onset until the time of the patient is isolated, along with routine disinfecting schedule and a pre-maintained for all staff. We also made sure with all of our safety protocols that we coordinated with our risk management director, Mr. Marcus Williams as well. Next slide. And by the way, Mr. Williams updated us earlier today that the community infection rate has now gone below 5% as of today, which is the CDC recommended minimum. This is a brief snapshot of our check-in procedure. Participants are greeted in their vehicles by a staff member. They're not allowed to exit the vehicle until the full check-in process is complete. We'll have a drop-off station in front of each facility. Participants will answer the COVID-19 screening questions, have their temperature taken while in the vehicle, and then once they pass that pre-screening, we'll proceed inside to a sanitation station, which will have sanitation available upon entering the facility, and of course, wearing a mask. Next slide. Daily health screenings. The PRC staff member conducting the screenings will of course wear PPE and maintain that distance I referenced earlier and ask the following questions. I won't go to that in detail, but it's essentially the same basic screening questions that you receive in most COVID-19 screenings. Once health screening is complete, a PRC staff member will escort the child to a sanitation station. Additionally, I wanted to pause and mention that as part of registration, there will be a waiver that all participants must agree to as part of signing up for these in-person activities. Next slide, please. This is a brief snapshot of how we will go about contact tracing for children or staff who develop symptoms during participation. Their parent or guardian will be contacted immediately for pickup as soon as possible. While waiting for a sick child to be picked up, staff will maintain visual supervision, but keep the child at a socially safe distance to make sure they are not in close proximity to any other participants. Participation or staff identified as having a confirmed, exposed, or suspect COVID-19 infection, we will isolate and send participant home immediately and follows the following COVID-19 standard quarantine protocols.
How many more slides do you have, Ms. Rose?
That's the last slide.
Thank you so much. Ms. Gilliard and then Mr. Khalid.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
noticed when looking at the list of parks that would be opening, I didn't see Cedar Grove Park. So was that an error or is it not going to be open?
So we are looking at gradually opening parks because with the staff levels we currently have, we want to be able to make sure that we can do some degree of monitoring of social distancing in the parks. And so we weren't at the stage where we could open all of the parks. We can certainly revisit Cedar Grove Park. Wilkerson Mill in District 4 is going to be open for passive use only. And so we do have a park in District 4, but these were the parks we initially considered opening for phase 2.
And so the reason why I'm saying that is because we have 4 subdivisions very close to Cedar Grove Park that have no amenities whatsoever. So that's why I'm saying that.
We can certainly revisit that and see if we can incorporate Cedar Grove for passive use only. There would be no active programming there, which is also the template we're using for the parks that you see listed.
Yeah, I know. They both, but well, one is a little more active than the other.
Yes, ma'am.
Cedar Grove is definitely, well, you might just want to just take a stroll over there or whatever. But anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Khalid, then Ms. Willis, and then Mr. Reed.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I'll start with, well, I'm gonna come back to that staffing thing, but for the registration for the summer camp, I know that there are like a limited number of spots. Is that just like first come, first serve?
Yes, that is first come, first serve, and it is they're week mini camps. And so there'll be an opportunity to register for each week as we move through that 8-week series of mini camps, but it is essentially first come, first serve.
And all of that registration is online.
Yes, through Civic Rec, correct.
So just, it's gonna be like trying to get a vaccine. People are gonna just be pressing the enter button a lot. The following up on what Councilman Gilliard said, I noticed that Cedar Grove and Wilkerson Mill were on the list specifically for summer camps. Neither are Creole or Old National. And I was wondering, is that just an issue of staffing? Is it also an issue of facilities? I know the buildings there are smaller.
It's a combination of both of those factors. We looked at how we could specifically be able to staff and maintain all of those COVID-19 implementations I talked about earlier. It's going to require us to really be diligent about social distancing, that pod model that I referenced earlier, managing smaller groups of kids. We reduced the participation levels for that purpose. And we've also reduced the number of participants per counselor or staff member. In a normal pre-pandemic summer camp, the ratio is typically more participants per staff, but in order to facilitate this scaled down model, it's no more than 8 participants per staff member. So it is a function of how many staff we have available to facilitate that. And that's what drove those numbers in those locations.
All right. I will mention a similar problem. And some of this goes back to just thinking comprehensively about things like our comp plan and our zoning regulations. Since COVID has started, 6 subdivisions have been under construction in District 6 alone, hundreds of homes. None of them have any amenities. So one of the things we have to think about is letting people build subdivision with no amenities, because that just puts more costs our infrastructure. The last question, you know I'm gonna ask, the brothers on that want to hoop. And they're like, basketball is not included. That's very big here on Old National, I know. Is that also just a function of not having enough staff?
It is. So in essence, in order for us to move in that direction, basketball is very popular, not only in your district, but throughout the city. And typically, particularly as the weather warms and we open up outdoor basketball courts, they attract a lot of participants. We would need to be able to monitor those courts with staff to make sure that we could open them up on some type of schedule where we could facilitate that social distancing, manage how many people are on the court at a time. Pre-pandemic, it wasn't uncommon to go by one of our basketball courts, specifically our Hawks court, and easily see 35 or 40 people on the court. Well, we're in a different world now. Our new normal won't accommodate that. As we move forward, we'll look for other ways to facilitate that, but it takes the staff that we currently have to facilitate the programs I've just gone over. And in order to expand that to include additional park monitoring beyond recreation centers and beyond the programs I've mentioned, it would take some additional staffing resources, and we're not currently positioned to do all of that simultaneously.
Is there a possibility, and I know this may be a staffing issue as well, but to have like 3-on-3 leagues or 4-on-4 leagues?
We've already looked at some models for 3-on-3. I have a recreation manager who's very anxious to do so, but it connects to the same issue, being able to monitor that sufficiently given our new normal with COVID-19. We will definitely take a look at it. It is commonly done, and we would like to move in that direction, but we'll have to, again, balance that against all the other programs that we are proposing in this presentation, because we want to, above all, as I'm sure everyone understands, keep everyone safe. And so as we begin to move forward with the ones that we have here and can make sure these best practices we are confident will work, are working as they've laid out, then we can certainly begin to look at additional activities, and 3-on-3 basketball would be one of those.
And so my final question, this is my tough question and a great segue to, I think, our next presentation. In order to provide all of these services that we'd like to see in all of our various parks, how many staff are you short? Like how much would you need to hire how many people to fully utilize our parks in this environment that we're probably going to be in for some time?
So the best way to answer that is based on national standards. The National Recreation Parks Association does a comprehensive assessment of all parks and recreation agencies on an annual basis, and they report out on what average staffing numbers look like for agencies based on the size of your city. It's typically right now, I believe, about 8.2 per 10,000 residents, 8.2 staff members per 10,000 residents. So if you look at that as a national standard, then that would put us at about 80 employees. Currently, we are right around just under 50 employees. And so we're a little bit below that national standard. And so that is probably the best benchmark. The next presentation that you're about to see may reference some of that. But that's normally the benchmarks that agencies of our type use to determine adequate staffing.
So you're saying about 30 more staff people?
Based on the national statistics for staff numbers per 10,000 residents, that's approximately how many staff members a city of 100,000 residents typically has.
Okay, 2 more quick questions. The youth athletic leagues and the other camps and programs like Transforming Youth or Future Seekers, will they be operational at all this summer? And could they maybe supplement some of the staff that we're missing?
So some of the other programs we intend to bring back once we have this socially distanced model in place, and we'd have to work with those organizations specifically to make sure that they are following the same COVID-19 protocols that we would have for all of the programs I just mentioned. Youth athletics, we have a different programming model conceptually for that. That's not currently a part of this phase 2 rollout. We are working on bringing that forward first, of course, to the city manager. And once receiving her approval, we would be able to more detail the youth athletic program, but it is a different model than the one we previously used.
Awesome. All right, thank you so much.
Yes.
That would be Ms. Willis, Ms. Reeves, and I'll close it out.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for being intentional, with the limitation of activities and being intentional about, keeping the activities on the outside, which will, help with the spread of the virus. And, when the summer approaches, I know that it's going to be harder to keep kids outside all day. So, we might need to figure out a contingency plan on when we have real hard days, because we don't want anyone dying on our fields, anyone else dying on our fields at Walkmore Park or any park in the city. And so, I understand we got to follow the science. We still need to understand that this pandemic is still in progress. And what I didn't hear and what I would like for us to do is anyone that participates in any activity in our parks or that's using our facilities in any organized activity by our park and recreation staff, are we going to require them to sign a waiver saying that we are not liable if they contract COVID-19 in any way?
Yes, that will definitely be a part of the registration process. Our registration has always included certain standard waivers, and we're going to add that when working with the city attorney and the city manager. So to answer that question, definitively, yes, there will be a waiver specific to that COVID-19 subject. So we'll make sure that that's a part of the registration. We have anticipated some contingencies to your earlier point about heat. Having worked through several summers, we're aware that we have to be very careful and diligent about that. And we will make some accommodations to make sure that we keep our children's health, again, being the primary consideration for everything that we do. It's not just COVID-19, but it is heat considerations as well. We are purchasing and using what are called wet bulb globe monitors. Essentially what that is it allows you to monitor the air temperature, humidity, and all of that combines to tell you when it is too hot for participants to be outside. It's the same thing that the Georgia High School Sports Association uses to make sure that they're not exposing athletes to undue weather conditions. And so we're going to incorporate that. But yes, we have contingencies to make sure that we can keep kids safe and healthy across the board.
So the other question I have is around, I didn't see the timeline on where you're going to, how these activities are going to progress in a reopening. Did I miss that, or did you not have that on?
It was at the beginning of the presentation, Councilwoman Willis.
Okay.
We plan to begin those activities on April 5th. Registration will begin in advance of that. The first activities will begin in early April.
Okay. The other thing is, how are you going to deal with spectators? Because I saw that you had Juneteenth activity that you're trying to plan. And I know that typically that holiday is going to draw a large crowd, which,
right.
I'm not sure we're at the point where we want to draw large crowds in our parks and facilities. So is that going to be more virtual activities? And then are you going to be able to monitor the spectators when you start having activities, the limited activities in the park, such as parents or, people who want to just come around and hang out? I mean, how are you going to manage that? And those were in my questions.
So that's a very good question. In everything we do moving forward as part of our new normal, until we get to a different posture, everything will require participants to register, sign up, or indicate their participation before coming. So in terms of crowds and spectators, that's not a part of the model that we're moving forward with. All the activities are simply for small group participants. And so there aren't traditional, for instance, youth baseball. We can't have crowds at a youth baseball game. It's primarily for the participants. If you watch, just as an analogy, even professional basketball games right now, there's no crowd there. So we understand that parents like to see their children play, but in the interest of safety, we have to limit that under this particular new normal step forward until such time as the pandemic continues to recede. We can revisit that as we get to phase 3, but there are no large crowds anticipated with any of these activities. Juneteenth will be an outdoor primary based activity. It's the same model because we understand that that's a safer environment, and there will be, again, a registration. It won't be open to everyone. You'll have to first come, first serve register for the activities that will be coming forth in that week, because that's just part of our new normal currently.
Okay, and Councilmember Khalid just put that vaccines will be available by everybody in June, and that's fine. But everybody, here's the thing: everybody's not taking the vaccines, and so we still have to pay attention to the science, and we still have to pay attention to the numbers. And our original goal was, you know, we will open full-fledged once we see, what was that, Mr. Phillip, consistently?
Yeah, community. Well, initially it was 14 days of declining numbers. In working with the risk manager, which we were intentional about doing, Councilwoman Willis, he is also having us focus on the community transmission rate, which CDC says for a safe environment, it should be below 5%. I referenced this earlier. As of today, it's at 4.7. Now that does fluctuate, but that's another significant measure of the degree of community virus spread. And so fortunately, things have trended in a positive direction. We all know that that's dynamic. It could go back up, it could continue to go down. And so we'll monitor as we move forward. If there is a change in posture and the virus starts to escalate again, we would pull back on our programming as the virus numbers would dictate. Currently, we're in a better position than we were previously, but it's something we constantly monitor.
Okay, so what I want to reiterate, are you throwing out the window that we don't open full-fledged until we see 14 days of declining numbers? Are you all dismissing that now?
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that in addition to that, we're also looking at the community spread numbers. So this is just phase 2. Before we move further, there would be additional information detailing how to move forward to the next phase.
Okay, and I just will reiterate that no one needs to be participating in any organized activity in our park without having a signed waiver on hand. Thank you.
Okay, before we go further, I announced that Mr. Reeves would be next and that I would close it out as we must move along. I will still hold to that. Mr. Reeves, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for this presentation, and I can't wait to get to the next presentation. However, you said the program will be registration April 5th. I think specifically the Burnett Tennis Center will be open at what day?
So programming will begin on April 5th. I'm sorry, program at the Burnett Tennis Center will begin in the month of May. And so that will start in the month of May. April is for the other programs. Burnett Tennis Center will start in May.
Do we have a specific day in May?
I will get that specific date for you. It's the first week of May.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get that specific date and get it to you, Councilman Reeves.
Okay, awesome. And then also too, in between all of this, we turned 4 this year. So are we gonna have a virtual birthday party?
That is something we can certainly take a look at. As you know, we have pivoted and really gone very strongly into virtual programming and have a really good start on that with our cultural affairs staff. And so we can certainly take that direction and coordinate with the city manager and see if we can't. We did a happy birthday celebration virtual last year, but we can certainly look at doing it again this year.
Okay, awesome. And the very last question is pertaining to the Juneteenth. Are we going to receive a status update of where y'all are in the process, and if there's anything that we can do to help you along?
Yes.
Things of that nature, we will get that coming.
Yes, thank you for that question. We are pulling together the final details of the plan, which we will then submit to the city manager for her review and approval. And once that box is checked, it will be forthcoming from her to the mayor and council.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Let me close out by asking one question. Chief, are you on? Chief Meadows. Chief Meadows, are you on? Being that Chief Meadows is not on, I'll hold my question. Mr. Clerk, next item, please.
Next item is item 3, City of South Fulton Parks Master Plan Funding Discussion. Carlos Perez, Perez Planning and Design, LLC.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Leadership. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to present to you this afternoon, where we're going to talk a little bit about a funding discussion. We started this conversation with you when we started the plan early on in the process, and we felt this was an opportunity to revisit this conversation, especially as you consider potential funding for different initiatives in the city. So if we can go to the next slide. Mr. Adams, great. So what we'd like to do is first just give you a brief overview of the project, just a simple reminder of the project process and where we are. Then remind you of what the summary findings were, and then share with you a draft long-range vision that we've developed in collaboration with staff, and look forward to sharing with you in more detail in the coming weeks. And then we'll get into that parks funding discussion, where we're going to use a community here in Georgia as an example for council's consideration. And then we'll talk about next steps. So if we can go to the next slide. So just as a reminder, this has been our process for the master plan, where we started with an existing conditions analysis just to establish a framework for discussion, the existing context of the city. And we went out to the community in a big way to understand what their needs and priorities were, including elected official interviews, many interviews with all of you. And then we used the findings from those two elements to work with staff to develop a long-range vision. And we look forward again to sharing that long-range vision with you in the coming weeks. And then next phase will be developing conceptual master plans for each of the individual parks in the system, talking about an implementation strategy, and ultimately approaching you for final plan and adoption. The conversation today, again, is a follow-up of a funding discussion that we had with you, but also preempting the implementation phase that we're getting into in the coming months. As we mentioned in the past, a key part of this process is the needs assessment. And if we can go to the next slide, just as again, a reminder of the process, where we used a variety of techniques to determine what the needs and priorities were of residents. So we used qualitative techniques, which you can see on the left of the slide. We used observational techniques and then quantitative techniques. And then the findings from all those three techniques then allow us to identify what the priorities were of the community. If we go to the next slide, just a brief reminder of the great engagement that we got, which started pre-COVID and even during COVID. So we heard from over 1,300 of your residents, which is really fantastic. And if we boil all these findings to 6 key ideas that you can see on the next slide, it comes down to these big 3 themes, right? So continue to position Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs as an essential service. And we've seen the department do that even through COVID, while providing meals and other necessities during these difficult times. There's a need to upgrade existing Parks and Recreation facilities. You've inherited a system that hasn't received capital improvements in many years. So this is an opportunity to really invest and improve in that. And we also heard that from residents as well. A need to ensure equitable access. There are certain areas in the city that may not have the same access as others. So we want to ensure that in the future that all areas have that same access. And we also want to continue to let residents know what is happening. So enhancing our marketing and communications. And then also we want to customize Parks and Recreation and cultural priorities to the needs of residents. And you'll see what some of those priorities were as a reminder of what we heard from residents. And then lastly, we want to look to maximize resource generation and allocation, which is part of the conversation that we're going to have today. So if we go to the next slide, this is just a reminder of what we heard from residents for the high priority needs as it relates to facilities. So just as a reminder, on the left-hand side, you see the different high priority facilities. And then on the top, you see the different techniques where we heard that information from, right? So paved multi-purpose trails were by far the most popular need from residents from a facility standpoint. And you can see the rest of the others, how they relate to that. And then if we go to the next slide, we see the same thing from a programmatic perspective, right? So the top one, we see that to be the high priority, and then Learn to Swim, senior programs, community special events as other high priorities. So the question to us is, what do we do about this, right? What is this, how do we address these needs, also within the framework of existing and potential future funding? So if we go to the next slide, here what we did is we compared the operations and maintenance funding of the department to benchmarks. And Mr. Phillips talked a little bit about these benchmarks before in the previous presentation, but it's a comprehensive look at what other departments spend in the country, departments that have a similar population and population density as the city of South Fulton, two metrics that are really important in terms of delivering parks and recreation services. And so we can see that we're about that mid to high 30s per resident spending, right? So for example, the city is spending around $39 per resident on parks and recreation services. And we can see how that compares to the upper quartile, so the high quality systems across the country, the medium, and then the lower quartile. So we're a little low. We're a little lower than the lower quartile, and there's an opportunity there to improve that. Lower quartile spends about $47 per resident. We're currently spending around $39, so an opportunity to enhance that spending. However, if we look at the capital improvements, currently in short term, we're actually doing pretty good. If you go to the next slide. Based on the URA funding that council has approved, that essentially looks at $6.8 million over the next 3 years. And so we compare that to the 5-year spending of systems with the same population and population density, we're actually doing really good. So over the next 3 years, the investment that council has approved in the park system is a really fantastic expenditure to improve the system, and that's really great. The question for us is, well, what about the following years after that, right? What do the next 10 plus years look like? And that's what we wanted to talk to you today about. So if we go to the next slide, this is a draft long-range vision of the system, and we look forward to sharing this with each of you in the coming weeks just to get into more detail about it. But essentially, this long-range vision looks to create an interconnected system of parks, trails, recreation, and cultural experiences, all to strengthen the sustainability and resiliency of the city of South Fulton. So that's a written vision, and what you're seeing to the right is that graphical vision that shows connectivity, shows future park spaces as the city continues to develop, and new community centers, and essentially to provide that equitable access throughout the city. So the question is, well, how do we fund this, right? This long-range vision that you're looking at here is about a 10, 15, 20-year vision, which order of magnitude planning level numbers is around $200+ million, right? Again, this is a long-range vision, and so consistent with long-range visions for other cities. So again, the question is, well, how do we fund that? So we wanted to share with you is what one of the premier systems in the country in Georgia has done. But before we get that, also to remind you what we heard from residents. So we go to the next slide. Next slide talks about what we heard from residents in terms of their perception of parks and recreation services during COVID and their desire to, what we heard from them in terms of the value of parks and recreation increasing during the pandemic and their desire to see increased funding for that. And then if you go to the next slide, it talks about their willingness to pay for that. So what we heard is that 60% of respondents said that they'd be willing to pay $1 to $5 per month increased taxes to fund this expanded system. So we understand from our residents that we'd like to see, there's an opportunity to see more spending for the parks. And then we even had conversations with you about it, where we said there's a library of funding sources that we can use for the Parks Department. And in the next slide, you can see just a reminder of what some of those were, right? So there was discussions early on as exploring the use of SPLOST to fund the Parks Department, right? Especially considering that the T-SPLOST was potentially ending in 2021. So could there be an opportunity to use some of those dollars? Also looking at park impact fees as new development continues to happen in the city. Is there an opportunity to seek that for funding, as well as grants, bonds, and even public-private partnerships to help with some of those opportunities? So what we wanted to do now is share what, again, a comparable or one of the premier systems in Georgia has done to fund their vision, right? And so if we go to the next slide, what you're seeing here is an example of how Gwinnett County, which is the premier system in Georgia, how they've primarily funded their system. And what you're seeing here is the history of their SPLOST, of the county SPLOST. SPLOST has been the method by which they funded the expansion and redevelopment or enhancement of the system. And it dates back to 1985. So what you're seeing here, that is in between 1985 to 1992, you can see the SPLOST values for those years. What you're seeing there is that the green in this slide, by the way, represents park spending. What percentage of the SPLOST was dedicated to parks? And you'll see that in 1985 to 1992, We currently don't have the data for what was spent on parks from that SPLOST, but our understanding is that there was dollars allocated within those original SPLOST for parks. In 1996, they decided to not include parks in the SPLOST, and the SPLOST was defeated. Our understanding is that the reason it was defeated is because it did not have park spending in the SPLOST. So in 1997, they reinitiated the inclusion of parks in the SPLOST, and they started to keep track of it. So ever since then, starting from 1997 onward, the county has essentially received about $2.8 billion from SPLOST. 25% of that money, so $700 million, have gotten to the park system. And you can see how that percentage has varied per year. The areas that you see in that dashed line, so starting for 2001, 2005, and 2009, that essentially represents the expansion of the system. That's when they really grew their system and built their system to be the premier system that it is today. What you're seeing in 2014 was when that was post Great Recession. So they focused those dollars on really just improving facilities. And the 2017 SPLOST, which is the one they're operating in right now, is really intended to expand and also enhance. So the big idea for us here is that SPLOST was a major component of them funding their park system. So if we go to the next slide, for council's consideration, our recommendation would be to consider SPLOST as a funding source for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And also, if it's council and the mayor's will, there's an opportunity to dig into this a little deeper. So the Trust for Public Land offers services to develop a finance feasibility study at no cost to the city because they obtain grant funding to do so, or they can study the potential feasibility of not only a SPLOST referendum in 2021, but also other funding sources as well to understand what the capacity is of the city for a variety of different funding sources. So we'd like council to also consider that as part of our master planning process. So with that, if we go to the next slide, we'll take any questions. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share this with you, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I see no one in the queue.
Well, yes, I had a question. What do we have to do to consider the SPLOST?
I believe it would just be a decision amongst council and the mayor to determine that you'd like to consider that SPLOST as a potential funding source and maintain some capacity in that SPLOST to facilitate that.
And how long is the average SPLOST? Years, in terms of years.
Usually it's between, my understanding is a short SPLOST is about 3 years. Normal SPLOST can be between 3 to 5 years, depending on the county's desire to accomplish it.
Good deal. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Let me see here. I have Mr. Khalid, Ms. Rao, then Ms.
I have a
Gilliard.
comment.
I'm
sorry.
I'm calling your name, and Ms. Gilliard will close there. Well, Khalid,
Okay.
Ms. Rao, and then Ms. Gilliard.
Well, first, I would like to make a motion to consider a SPLOST. If that's do we need to make a motion?
I'll second it.
Point of order.
Go ahead. What's your point of order? Is it procedural?
Though, yes, it is procedure. We don't vote for things like that in work sessions. That should be done in a regular council meeting.
Okay, I think that's a good point of order. Mr. Khalid, Mr. Khalid, you want?
No, what I would ask is that, well, everyone is on notice. I would like for us to, so we're not voting. It doesn't really matter. I wasn't.
No, you duly noted. You duly noted.
Yeah, and the vote, I just want to be clear for everyone listening. The vote is not to authorize a SPLOST. The vote is, let's just have a conversation about it.
You duly noted.
And my next question was we heard from Director Phillips in the last presentation that Parks needs about 30 staff according to national standards. Was that your finding as well? And does that include projections for future growth? I know we're still waiting for our 2020 census numbers, but like how understaffed are we?
Yeah, so that's consistent with our understanding as well. So it's using benchmark numbers from National Recreation and Parks Association of how many staff per 1,000 residents, and then comparing that to what the city has now. So I'd have to get back to you on projections, but currently I believe that's understanding as well.
And is there I didn't see in this presentation, but is there a plan for scaling that up? Like I know when we hire more police officers, we say we're going to do X number of officers per year for the next year. We have like a goal of how to do that.
Yes, that is the next phase in our plan where we do get into the implementation phase. And so we'll work with your finance department to see what's realistic, right? What does the budget for Department of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs look like over the next coming years? And then based on that funding, develop a series of strategies to see how we can grow that.
Awesome. And I'll just close by saying I am excited and going to be a very ardent supporter of this. That 3-year investment number that you put up, it sounds like a nice number that we're doing through the URA and some other things, but a lot of that is just maintenance because our parks have been chronically underfunded. And we still have like District 7 that have no parks at all. So I think that we are going to need to spend a lot of money to have world-class parks.
Thank you, Mr. Khalid. Ms. Rao, then we'll close. Ms. Gilliard.
Thank you. Great presentation. And I think we all know that, we got to put some money in the parks. Does the staff or the city manager have a specific recommendation relative to how much we should allocate for SPLOST, giving the other improvements that we may need to look at? Because I'm assuming we would be coupling this SPLOST with a T-SPLOST.
Well, what I was going to say is this SPLOST and T-SPLOST would be separate. My understanding, having come from a city that used SPLOST funds to maintain our parks and do other various parks improvements, the SPLOST was, a totally separate pot of money. And also, of course, we had to work with the county. And this is what I'm referencing to when I worked for the city of Smyrna. We use SPLOST, and fortunately, that's where I had an opportunity to also work with Carlos as the consultant for the Parks Master Plan at that particular city. So I'm very well familiar with what he is saying, but there would be more conversations that would need to be made, because I don't know if we could go out on our own, of course, to do a SPLOST for just our city. We may have to combine it with efforts with Fulton County as well.
Well, thank you. I think I'll be looking forward to you giving us some more insight in what it will take to move forward. The investment in parks is long overdue. And throughout the process, we repeatedly heard from constituents that they want improvements in our parks. So hopefully we can get on one accord with the county and figure out how to marry both the SPLOST and the T-SPLOST to make these kind of improvements. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Hello.
Mayor Edwards.
Go ahead, Ms. Gilliard. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I have a request, Mr. Perez. The page with the map on it that reflects, I think, new, I don't know because I can't read it. Yeah, that's the page. Can you please send us a copy of nothing but the page with all the legends and everything on it so we can clearly see it? When you print it out, it is still not large enough. I can't get it large enough in order to be able to go through it thoroughly. So I really would appreciate that, and maybe others might as well.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. In addition, we look forward also to having conversations with each of you to go through it in detail and get your thoughts on it. This is very much a draft long-range vision. So we look forward to getting all your input on it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Adams. Next item.
Next item is Finance Monthly Report.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is Nina Robinson. Thank you for allowing me to present this report to you. Mr. Adams, can you bring up the slideshow for me, please?
Yep, coming right up.
Thank you, sir. I'll start with the next slide, which shows our revenues for the general fund, the budget compared to the actual revenue as of January 31st. We had budgeted for the fiscal year $72,809,000, and we have received to date $50,005,494 in revenue for through the January 31st. The bulk of those funds are the property taxes that come due and payable by January 15th of the year. And so we can see that we have done well in collecting those monies. There will be additional funds trickling in over the rest of the year for those who are making late payments, et cetera. We're doing well with the motor vehicle taxes receipts. Franchise tax revenue is even better than we expected. We have accepted some additional funding from a source that we weren't aware of. And so we will be making an amendment in our budget for those additional revenues. Local option sales taxes based on economic spending by the citizenry is continuing to trend well despite the pandemic. Business taxes are due on March 15th. So of course, right now we're showing that we haven't collected a lot of that money, but by the end of March, we should have everything in. Hotel, motel, insurance premium. The bulk of that $7 million is related to the one-time per year payment of the insurance premium tax. We are doing well with that. We came in a little under what we budgeted, but still doing well. Licenses and permits are related to building permits. And we are doing exceedingly well in that area also. The intergovernmental agreements for the Fulton Industrial Boulevard and City of Atlanta money is coming in as expected. The charges for services is trending very well. That's related to the revenue we're recognizing associated with traffic camera revenue. We only budgeted $394,000 for that area, and we've come in on over $1 million to date for traffic camera revenue. The other revenue source is the revenue that we recorded for the CARES Act. Next slide, please. This is a depiction, just a graphic depiction of the same information I just presented to you. You can see again that the bulk of our revenue is property tax revenue. Second then is the insurance premium taxes and other taxes that come in for the city. Next slide, please. Again, property taxes. This is showing you over the years where we have recognized property taxes income for the city. We're trending very well. Our current tax rate is at 93.95%. Our best year was in 2018 at 99.38%, but we do expect to always settle somewhere in the high 90s for tax collectability. Next slide, please. This is a depiction of our expenditures related to the general fund. Of $72 million that we budgeted, we've spent $21 million. And again, just because we're trending lower in expenses, recall that we still have several months to go in the fiscal year to get to where we budgeted for the year. This is a depiction of expenditures related to operations and personnel costs. The next slide shows where we are in relation to operations and personnel costs per the budget. We are doing exactly where we should be. Next slide, please. This is an overview of all funds, revenue, and expenditures. The revenues are on the top of the graph, expenditures at the bottom of the graph. Next slide, please. that I would leave this at this point open for questions.
Yes, I have Mr. Khalid.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Khalid, there you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My first question, well, all my questions are about the Blighted Property Fund. At our last meeting, we discussed doing an audit for that fund. Have we started that audit?
An audit for that fund. Our last discussion that I recall, Councilman Khalid, was whether or not we had sufficient funds budgeted for that fund. And I explained that when we presented the budget for adoption, we had included $200,000 in that fund. And it just so happens that Ms. Reed and I will be meeting on Thursday just to make sure that we are all on the same accord with those funds.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. There should be $400,000 in the fund. There was some discrepancy about whether this fund would be funded annually and whether or not it was restricted. And you said that you needed to revisit the legislation.
And I did do that. Yes, sir, I did. And I sent some information to Ms. Reed that we will be going over on Thursday to see where we are with that. And I'll get back with you on my findings on that.
Awesome.
And
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Khalid, if you don't mind, I will follow up with the council once Ms. Robinson and Ms. Reed get together, and I will communicate that to you all.
Yeah, our meeting is Thursday at 4 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khalid. We have Ms. Rouse and Ms. Willis.
Thank you. Can you go back to the prior slide?
The one with all the funds?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Corey.
Okay. So want to understand, so we're trending below on T-SPLOST. I want to know, does that, well, I'm assuming that may impact some, well, it will impact our list. Can Public Works or somebody speak to that?
Mr. Valenzuela, are you on the call?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Have you looked at this to determine how you prioritize what's on the T-SPLOST for the current year, being that we're trending significantly below what was projected?
Actually, what we are receiving in a monthly basis, it's pretty much online of what it was forecasted. I cannot state anything based on the year-to-date revenue. Maybe Ms. Robinson might explain better, but my monthly reports that we receive, I haven't seen it too much of a deviation of what it was projected.
I concur with what Mr. Valenzuela is saying. The year-to-date numbers are just this current fiscal year's activity. We do have monies that we have collected all of last year that are sitting in the T-SPLOST account waiting to be expended. So 7,615,000 is not what's available to be expended. They have significantly more money in that fund.
Well, that's great. Love to hear that. And I think I saw, what was it, another area? Can you go back to, I think it was maybe about the third slide. Another, okay. No, the next one, I think. Next, right there.
Expenditures.
Right. Are there any areas, this is the general fund, are there any areas that you think, we're going to be significantly behind given kind of where we are and what you see trending?
Those areas that we think where we need to make some adjustments are going to be included on the budget amendment 2 that I'm going to present to you later this month on the 23rd. So we do have some areas that we need to make improvement on. One is in the code enforcement area, because we're trending so well in the revenue and we have a contract that's related to the revenue activity that's produced by the third party. We will have additional expenditures there. And there's also a couple of other contractual obligations that we need to make allowance for in the budget for those expenses.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that. And that budget amendment, is that coming next month?
Yes, it's going to be on the 23rd of this month.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, I have Ms. Willis, Ms. Gilliard, and we'll close with Ms. Gums.
I was going to ask Ms. Robinson, it would be very helpful if going forward, we can see the actual to budget numbers. Like what
Yes,
has
ma'am.
because it's I mean, for people who don't have an accounting mind, that it is confusing to see budget and then you have year to date.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to make the reports look like what you want them to look like, to give you the information you need.
okay.
Thank
And
you.
then also, can you go back? I have a question. What I also would like to see is where we have the percentage that we have actually collected in revenue and expenses relative to where we supposed to be. Go back, if you go
I
back.
think it's the first slide.
Mhm.
No.
No,
revenue.
go back to the next one. The next one. You talked about the expenses. You had a list of all of the expenditures.
Yes, this is the list of expenditures for
So no,
general
it's not,
fund.
yeah, but it's not the next one. It was broken down by, okay, so wait a minute. So, you know how we're supposed to have a certain percentage of our budget spent based on where we are in a fiscal year. So if we're in March, we want to have a certain percentage. We don't want to be above the percentage
Yes,
that we're
ma'am.
supposed to have spent. And I would love to see those to make
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
that we are not we're staying in alignment with revenues and expenses, but it will also help us determine, you know, whether or not we need to slow down our spending or accelerate it, you know, based on the fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am. We'll work to provide that information to you on the next report.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And before I go, where should we where should we be now? We're in March, so what percentage should we be now?
Well, if you're doing a straight line percentage and you're taking the budget and just dividing it by 12, we are in month number
6.
We're in month number 5, October, November, December, January. I'm sorry, October, November, December, January. So we're in month 4
March.
in this presentation. This is the presentation for January. So next month will be 5 and March will be in month 6.
So what percentage should we be like?
So we should be 4/12, so 1/3 of the way through.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Gilliard, we'll close with Ms. Gums.
This question is for the city manager. What is the status of hiring a finance director?
Well, we actually have started interviews, and we have some additional interviews that we are going to do. And so hopefully I will be bringing forth a individual to you all soon, but I am taking my time to make sure I choose the best qualified candidate for this important position. All of our positions are important, but particularly as it comes to relates to our finance director, I want to make sure that the individual that I am seeking has the skills and the ability to run the finance department and be able to be forward thinking in regards to our finances for the city.
And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilliard. Ms. Gums, you can close it out.
Yes, Corey, excuse me, clerk, can you forward to the next slide? I believe it is the next one. I believe it is under solid waste. Do we know exactly when we will be getting any more funding from the providers as far as the 5% infrastructure fee?
To my knowledge, there are no additional revenue sources related to that, and the general fund is actually supporting the shortfall on that fund. Maybe Mr. Valenzuela has some insight that he could share with solid waste revenue.
Councilwoman Gomes, the only revenues, and not real revenues, the 5% infrastructure fees comes out of the solid waste, and most of them are provided there. the 5% back to the city hall. And
So
I
they
would
are provided,
assume-
and most of them are updated as
Yes,
far as,
that is correct. They're updating and we're keeping track with them. And as we're moving forward, we're working closer with finance to ensure that those checks are coming directly to them so they can reflect that into their quarterly reports. We should be coming back to you in the next couple of weeks, a quarterly report on solid waste, where we'll be addressing as well funds collected that will be online with finance.
okay. And then my next question is the reports updated on OpenGov in real time. Have we kind of nailed down that process and procedure?
We're still working with OpenGov to resolve some issues. We had a meeting with them earlier. Every week we have meetings trying to resolve the issues. I'm not sure if that's answering the question you're asking.
Is there a possible date of when we will actually resolve those issues and it will come online full-fledged?
I'll defer that to Ms. Marshall or Mr. Strickland.
This is Ms. Marshall. We literally just forwarded over some new information related to data to OpenGov this evening. I have a meeting with them tomorrow at 3 o'clock, so we should have further information to give to you guys after that meeting.
So will you provide, I guess, a memo or update to let the council know where we stand in reference to that?
We will work with the city manager to make sure you have that memo. Yes.
Thank you.
I think she wants something a little bit more than we're working on. So, Ms. Gunn. Okay, thank you all so much. Next item, please.
Next item is monthly report, city attorney.
That will be done in executive session.
Okay. All right. Next item.
And the last item on the agenda is city manager's monthly report. Ms. Sally Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will make my report quick. I'm sure everybody's been hearing in the news the information about the CARES Act funding that was approved in the U.S. Senate and is moving to the House based upon information that the city has received from GMA, NLC, and our representatives in the U.S. Congress. The city of South Fulton is estimated, and let me stress estimated, to receive $31 million. So we will continue to keep you posted on that information. URA, the city continues to make steps regarding improvements in our facilities and services offered to our city of South Fulton residents through the URA. Staff has completed one-on-one meetings with all council members to review the implementation for the projects in each of your respective districts. We have hired a project manager, and staff is working to develop signage. Actually, we've already gotten the signage. We just need to get it placed, and we will keep you posted when we put up the signage so the public will be aware of where specific URA projects are within our city. We will also be updating our city's website and pushing information out on our social media to keep everyone up to date on the progress regarding our URA. Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. The city, we officially received notification regarding the city's 2021 allocation of CDBG funding through HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We are expected to receive about $504,000. The CDBG program will now be managed through my department. Jamila Chris, our special projects manager, will be overseeing the program management of the CDBG program in conjunction with our grants administrator in the finance department. There was an action plan that was drafted by the city. It included several projects, blight reduction, neighborhood revitalization, public facilities, improvements on public infrastructure, economic development and small business initiatives, fair housing, housing counseling and legal services, affordable housing supply and support, disaster preparedness, emergency management response, and planning and administration will also go along with that. The consolidated plan and the action plan are still in draft form, but staff is working through the changes in that, and we will make sure that we keep the council updated on the CDBG program. Cascade Road Bridge. Work has resumed to repair the Cascade Road Bridge over Branch, what is that? Utoy Creek Culvert. Want to make sure I say that right. Due to rain over the past few weeks, crews experienced weather delays, but anticipate the work will be completed in April, and that's next month, by next month, April 2021. Staff is working with the contractor to improve manpower at the site to make sure that we try to make up for any weather delays. We pushed out information on social media and on our website, I believe, regarding our high intensity enforcement efforts. We kicked off in District 3. We are continuing to make our rounds to all of the districts. We will be notifying you when we will be in your specific district. During the week of February 22nd, the police department, in conjunction with the code enforcement and public works, kicked off those efforts. It was a huge success, and I want to thank all of those staff persons who were involved, and particularly I want to publicly thank our Assistant City Manager, Don Toms, who helped initiate this effort. And with the assistance, again, of all the staff, we were able to do some great things. And we are looking forward to moving around to other districts, all of the districts, rather, let me stress that, within our city. Spring cleanup event. I want to make sure our citizens are aware that our City of South Fulton spring cleanup event will take place on Saturday, April 10th. Again, that's Saturday, April 10th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is a biannual event that allows our residents to dispose of household municipal solid waste free of charge. And let me stress that, free. The event will be held at Merton Miles Transfer Station and at Creel Park, which is located at 2775 Creel Road. Curbside pickup is also available for our seniors. And let me stress, this is seniors 65 and older. Residents are asked to register for this service no later than Monday, April the 5th. And you can register by calling 470-552-4311, 470-552-4311. And also, please go to our city website if you want to get more information, and we will also share information through our social media platforms. Many of you have seen information about the zip codes. I want to go as fast as I can because I know we have a 6 p.m. meeting, but we are going to be working on some frequently asked questions that we will distribute to the full council so you can assist us in pushing this information out to your constituents regarding the Postal Service updating their database that we can now put on our envelope, South Fulton, Georgia, with the specific zip codes. And again, we will get that information out to you. Also wanted to let you know that we are doing an FAQ regarding the single-use plastic ban. As you all are aware, March the 1st, the ban took effect in the city, and the aim is to reduce the negative impacts of using single-use plastics by banning certain plastics and containers. We want to make sure we educate our public. So we are going to be looking at trying to do an educational video and answer as many questions as we can about this particular plastic ban. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will complete my report. If any council member has questions, I'll take those at this time, and also any other information, we'll make sure we email that out to you this week.
All right, as we're pushing to our 6 o'clock meeting, I have Mr. Khalid followed by Ms. Willis, and we'll adjourn from there.
Thank you. This isn't so much a question as a request. I see that our police chief is not on today, and we are short of time. But several residents have been asking about the case of the officer, and I would under investigation, and I just wanted to get where we are in that investigation, and maybe some.
That's a question we don't do in public. I think it would have to be in executive session.
I hear you. I think that we could just tell the public where it is. I'm not asking for details, but like if we could just answer some general inquiries. There is a perception amongst.
Order, Mayor.
Excuse me. I think whichever way you put it, it is legal. And I would be hesitant to have that discussion, Mr. Khalid, at this in this forum.
Point of order, Mayor.
Is it procedural? What is it?
Yes, not only is it legal, this is personnel.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Khalid, that's my point, and I hear you. That attorney can opine if he would like, if he's on here.
It's pending litigation, and I wouldn't want council members or the city to comment at this point.
That's all I needed to. That's all I wanted. If it's pending litigation, then we can tell people it's still pending a litigation. That's
okay. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Last to speak is Ms. Willis, and we're going.
Wait a minute, I'm in the queue.
Oh, ma'am, I said Ms. Willis would be the last speaker on this issue.
Wait a minute.
Ms. Willis, go ahead.
Thank you for recognizing me.
Why am I not being recognized?
You must mute yourself, Ms. Kirion.
Yeah, I'm on mute.
No, mute yourself. You interfere with Mrs. Willis's comments.
Thank you for your report, City Manager Sadler Jones. Do you have, and this is just one short question. I appreciate the sweep in District 3. It was very comprehensive, and it uncovered a lot. The police department put out a summary of what they encountered and what happened, the results of the sweep, but I have not seen that type of reporting from Public Works, Code Enforcement. When are they going to put out their report for what they revealed or what happened during the sweep?
Can get with the department directors and find out when that information will be available, and then we can get that out to the entire council.
Okay, because police went ahead and shared theirs on social media, and the residents really love the feedback. And so they would love to know what the feedback is for those divisions. And also, can we, going forward, get some type of reporting from Code Enforcement? I know they have court weekly, but it would be great if the council members knew what was going before Code Enforcement court, and then also the result of what happened when court is once the case has been adjudicated. Same thing with the Code Enforcement Board, because our schedules doesn't permit us to go sit in court and follow our cases. And then sometimes when we are sent the docket, we don't know we can't tell what district it's in. So we need somebody to add a column letting us know what district it's in, so that we would know what cases are going to court and then what is adjudicated once they go to court. Because we often get questions from our residents on code enforcement issues in our community. And, that would cut down on us having to constantly come to staff for those questions.
Okay. I'll work with the staff and we will put something together for you.
Thank you.
Okay, as we work with, as we go to our next meeting, which we do have less than an hour, I would recommend to you all that we not have an executive session, that we ask for that we close out this portion.
Point of
I
order.
have a question, Mr. Mayor.
And I have, Ms. Gilliard, what I said is distinctively, when I called the roll, that this would be the
It's in the
last
queue.
issue because of time.
I had clicked request to speak. I was in the queue. I have a question for
You know,
Ms.
I'm gonna let you speak, but let me make it clear, you were not in the queue.
Well, my computer says I was.
Okay, go ahead and speak, Ms. Gilliard. We must move on.
Ms. Sadler, I don't know what to tell my constituents regarding the zip code as it relates to Fairburn, because I don't understand why there is no City of South Fulton 30213 and 30249.
Do you mind if I talk to you offline? Because I had sent an email to you and I can resend it, but yes, if you don't mind, I'll be glad to discuss it with you offline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like.
I move that we adjourn and move executive session after the zoning hearing. Is that what you're recommending, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We properly moved the second. Discussion.
I have discussion.
Go right ahead, sir.
For the record, I was making a motion before Councilwoman Willis started talking over my motion. I have an issue or litigation that I think is critical to discuss before we go into our next meeting. If I could just have 20 minutes with our council to discuss that issue, it would be greatly appreciated.
If it's legal, Mr. Khalid, why can't you discuss it in executive session? You get the same right.
I was going to make a motion to go to executive session for litigation before.
Excuse me, go ahead. You have the right to bring up any item you want in executive session.
And I'm asking that we do that before we start the next meeting, which is a zoning hearing.
I'm trying to get, so I see what the validity in that is. I can't say that. Let's vote, please.
Well, I'm sorry. If I still have the floor, I'm trying to find a way to say this. So I'm just going to say it one more time.
Yeah.
If nobody hears what I'm saying and no one wants to second it, then
make a substitute motion.
But my motion was to take 20 minutes to talk about an item related to litigation before we have a zoning hearing. I have an item that is exigent around litigation before we go into a zoning hearing.
In a public forum?
No, in an executive session but before we have a public zoning hearing.
Oh, I see. I got you now. Yes, I see what you're saying now. Well, you got.
I second his motion.
All right, that's a different. I'm sorry, Mr. Khalid. You're absolutely correct. Was that a motion, Mr. Khalid? There a substitute motion?
Substitute motion, since you've already recognized another motion, that would be a substitute.
Okay, that'd be great.
And actually, Mrs. Rao was seconding that motion, so she's the seconder on the original motion. If she withdraws her second, then the original motion would not have a second.
Are you withdrawing?
I withdraw my original second on the original motion.
Okay, probably moved by Mr. Khalid, second by Mrs. Rao. Probably moved by Mr. Khalid, second by Mrs. Rao. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote.
Yes.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao?
Yes.
Councilmember Gums?
Yes.
Councilmember Willis?
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
We will recess for executive
Okay,
session
Mr.
at
Khalid, we'll go into
6:09.
executive session. Okay.
20 minutes?
Yes, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Probably move to second discussion. Hearing none, let's vote, please.
Motion to adjourn, roll call, Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Work session is adjourned at 6:43.
Mr. Mayor,
And we go back at 7 o'clock, Mr. Clerk.
I'm
Mr.
sorry?
Mayor,
I want to take a, when is that? What, our regular meeting started at 6, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to start at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
5 minutes, no more than 5.
my Novus is not working.
Okay. Let me open the meeting.
Councilwoman,
This is
Why isn't Novus working?
you may just have to go to the pull down menu and switch it to 6.
I did, and it's not, and it doesn't pull up to let me speak.
Mayor, I move that we take a 5-minute break so we can get our technology challenges taken care of.
Once
Is there a second to that?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, let's probably move second. In discussion. Okay, let's come back here at 7 o'clock. Is that okay?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
fine.
Mr. Adams, can you tell me what to do?
Yes, I'll call you.
Okay.
And put your phone on mute.
Aye.
Call me.
Unknown caller.
Okay, Mr. Adams, hold on.
Roll, please.
Roll call for the zoning public hearing for March 9th. The Honorable William Bill Edwards, Mayor.
Here.
The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
Present.
The Honorable Naima Gilliard, District 4. The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Counter for.
The Honorable Councilmember Khalid, District 6. The Honorable Mark Baker, District 7.
Present.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, you have a quorum.
On the first item, please.
First item is AN 21-001. It's council to consider an annexation of 0 Waycast Drive and 0 Riverside Drive. This item was held on February 9th, 2021. This is located in District 1.
Staff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Our first case tonight, Z21-001 and AN 21-001, both go together. As the clerk mentioned, they are for an annexation and a zoning of a new parcel into the city. The petitioner has requested a deferral on these two cases for 30 days. Staff would recommend that we accept the request of the petitioner. And I would also mention that we have no fundamental objection if that deferral is for 60 days either.
Okay, is the
I
petition
move
here?
that we defer for 60
Hold
days.
up, let me carry
So
this.
move second.
Can I carry this through? Okay. Is the petitioner here?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, this is Edric Harris. I'm here.
All right, you have anything to say?
No, sir. I'm
right,
in full
anybody?
agreement with.
Right. Anybody disagree on the other side? Hearing nothing? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we did receive one public comment from Ms. Gloria Williams, who is in the call.
Okay, Ms. Williams. Is she there, Mr. Adams?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and fellow neighbors. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My question regarding this project is, I don't understand, and I've had other residents to voice the same concern, how annexing this project or this property to the city of South Fulton benefits the city of South Fulton and benefits the homeowners and residents of the city of South Fulton.
Okay. The petitioner, you want to answer that?
Sure, I can answer that. Well, I think the first part of it is that over half the property is actually already in. So it's just really cleaning up something that's just probably more confusing than it is clear right now, because half the property is in the city of South Fulton, the other half is not. And of course, we are bringing, quality, affordable housing for seniors that's in great need, which is shown by, our leasing status and staffing that we have going on right now. So I think as far as that goes, that's I guess all I have to say.
Well, why not?
Go ahead.
Why not annex it back, the city of South Fulton portion back into Fulton County?
I don't think Fulton County. Oh, sure. Go ahead.
No, this is Nathan. Procedurally, once a parcel is incorporated, it cannot become unincorporated again legally. So it's once something is in the city, it's in the city.
Mayor,
Ms. Williams, anything else?
can I get clarification? Can the staff also speak to the service delivery in terms of police and this parcel being split and fire, Fulton County jurisdiction, those kind of issues?
Well,
Can the staff speak to that?
Public hearing, we usually don't do that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Ms. Rob, it's on you.
I make a motion to defer for 60 days.
Second.
Probably moved to second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Let's vote, please. Mr.
Roll call vote to defer for 60 days. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid, Councilmember Khalid, Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That motion is approved 601 to defer for 60 days.
Next item, please.
Next item, well, actually, we have to vote on each one individually. I don't think procedurally we can group the cases together.
Well, how are we grouping them?
So that was AN 21-001.
Yes,
We need a
that's
motion to defer the Z 21-001.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were doing them individually. Okay. Ms. Rao, you want to make that motion?
I make a motion to defer the, could you restate that?
AN
That number
21-001. We're talking
No,
about.
yeah, no, the zoning case was Z 21-001.
Thank you, to defer
Second.
60 days.
Probably
Second.
moved in second. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, did we hear these two together?
Yeah, you heard them together, but you have
Okay,
to vote
okay.
on them separately.
That's all I wanted to know. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, please.
Roll call for vote to defer for 60 days. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid, Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item is approved to hold for 60 days.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 3, Z20-005. Council to consider a rezoning at 0 Buffington Road from AG1 ONI to M2 for the purpose of developing an office and storage yard. And this is located in District 5.
Staff.
Thank you very much. This case, the petitioner here seeks to rezone from AG1 OI, and there is split zoning on the site, which we will see when we get to the zoning map in just a minute, to M2. I will make a note that the petitioner has requested to petition for M1 instead of M2. The intent here is to develop an office and storage yard for construction equipment for his own business. The petitioner has met with the community several times, and staff has been present at those meetings and with Councilmember Reeves. The recommendation here is denial due to non-compliance with the future land use map. And at the planning commission meeting, they also recommended denial. We can go to the next slide, please. You'll see in this, we can go back to the previous slide. Thank you. Thank you very much. So in the center of your screen is a large warehouse. That property is zoned M1. You will see that in just a second. The property that we are talking about in question is across the street from that warehouse, in between the warehouse and the interstate on Buffington Road. It is an undeveloped parcel, just all trees right in the center of the screen. Go to the next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. On the left, you will see the zoning map for this parcel. It is split zoning. You will see office institutional and the AG1 on the parcel. It is outlined in blue on the map on the left. And on the right, you'll see the future land use map for this area right here, showing it as community live work, which would have commercial and office institutional on it and not the industrial parcel. I will make a note on the zoning map on the left, you'll see there's industrial across the street. To the right, the light blue is townhome. So there are residential communities in the adjacent area. We can go to the next slide, please. This is a site plan of what the petitioner is intending to do. You'll see two buildings. One is an office and one is a storage and repair building for some of his equipment. Otherwise, there is a storage yard on the site. The petitioner has made several concessions in discussing with the community in terms of the access to the site, preventing trucks from turning left on Buffington Road and heading to the direction of the residential neighborhoods, and fencing and buffering on the site. But that does not change the planning commissioner staff recommendation. And that concludes the staff report.
Petitioner, he has anything to say? Does the petitioner have anything to say? Anybody else for this?
Yes, this is the petitioner right here. So,
Go ahead.
So when we had the community meeting, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I understand I guess the attitude towards a large warehouse and the zoning that this particularly falls under. But after we had, I think there were 4 people on the call, including Commissioner Reeves and then myself and then Nathan. There were 4 residents, I believe. And after we got the call, after everybody understood it was just for my office and then a mechanic repair shop, not for hire, only for my equipment. And then there was a little bit of a storage yard, which it shows it big on the site plan, but that's where we said buffers and stuff like that, because I don't need that large of a storage yard. Basically, it's 3 to 4 months out of the year I would have 2 to 3 pieces of equipment that would be in the yard, where all of them couldn't fit in the shop in the winter time to be repaired. I'm in the grading and site work business, so you bring equipment in the wintertime when it's raining every day and repair it and then send it back out when the weather breaks. But the ultimate, or the feeling at the end of the call with the community members were that they were somewhat in favor, and they were supposed to send Nathan emails, and I don't know that they did or did not. But we handled all the calls, and basically, so I have 4 people in the office, and then I have 1 mechanic that would be at the shop. So it would only add, if you take them pulling in the morning, leaving for lunch, pulling back in after lunch, and leaving in the afternoon, it would add about 20 cars of traffic per day to Buffington Road. And we made the concession that no car could come out of the parking lot and turn left on the Buffington Road. They would have to turn right and go back towards Flat Shoals. So it'd be a left in and a right out only. So
Anybody else for the plan? All right, do we have anybody against Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir. We have 3 people against this application. We have 2 written comments, and Ms. Gloria Williams wishes to provide.
Let's take Ms. Williams. Let's take Ms. Williams first. Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Okay, I lost connection and therefore.
We hear you.
I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah, well, we do hear you.
Right, you hear me now, but I lost connection, so I missed the last part of what was said. Okay, but regarding, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I can clarify. I don't know where where I left off, but what I was saying is, in our last meeting with the community people, or the community representatives, we said that we would have buffers, a fence, and then it's only for, in my office, there's only 5 people that would be there every day. So it's roughly 20 cars pulling in the morning, leaving for lunch, coming back from lunch, and then leaving in the afternoon. And we did talk to Nathan that it would, and I agreed to it, that we would only be able to turn left into the office. And when we pulled out of the office, we'd have to turn right and go back towards Flat Shoals Road and not go through not have any impact on the residential portion of Buffington Road.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Okay, well, I appreciate Nathan's explanation and visual at the beginning, because it clearly shows to the left of this property is a child care center and a church. To the right of the property is a townhome designated community, and further down, another single family detached community. And again, the last thing we need more of in the city of South Fulton is any property zoned for any type of industrial or warehouse space. And I hope that members of city council will vote against it. What we need is more professional office space, things that the community is asking for. Constantly, I'm hearing that they want medical facilities, they want spaces for doctor's offices, other professional services, better retail space. They can't even find a dentist nearby. So for that reason, I'm opposed to it. And many of the folks I know in that area are opposed to it.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
So
Williams.
can I,
No, sir, you can't until you have time left for rebuttal. I'll acknowledge you at that time.
okay.
Mr. Adams,
Yes,
Yeah.
we have two written comments. The first is from Tanine Chisholm, who lives on Les Jardins Boulevard in District 4. She asked that to deny petition Z20-005 for 0 Buffington Road. We should not allow heavy industrial use in our city. We are already plagued with the abusive allowance of warehouses by Union City. Please don't join Union City's club or disregard. And the last comment received was from Clyde Sampson, who lives on Sable Chase Lane in District 5. He states, I am opposed to case Z20-005. This development is not a good fit with our community. We have enough industrial development in this area, and we don't need more. There are plenty of other areas in the Metro Atlanta area that would welcome this office storage facility. That completes the opposition.
okay, now, Mr. Benson, I'll give you a little time to rebut.
Okay, so this is not a typical industrial use. So a typical industrial would be a large warehouse with multiple tractor trailers that would be coming on the site daily. So this is only for my personal use. So if the only thing that we're really debating here, and Nathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I build what I want.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
So the only thing that we're debating in the zoning is the outdoor storage. So the way it's currently zoned, I could build my office and build my shop as long as I kept everything inside and didn't have any outdoor storage except for vehicular traffic. Is that correct, Nathan?
And that is correct. The point of the rezoning was to get the outdoor storage of his equipment.
Okay. Are you
Yeah.
finished, Mr. Benson?
So yes, sir. But the outdoor storage. So and I understand, but the person in Les Jardins in Zone 4, they're thinking just because they see the M1 zoning, they're thinking that it's a huge warehouse like this already right across the street. And then Miss Williams, what she's talking about, the townhome and the single family up the street, I don't even believe it's in the city of South Fulton.
Okay, I'm gonna close public hearing. Who is this? What district is this? 2?
Mr. Reeves.
2.
District 5.
District 5, Mr. Reed, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to follow. I want to follow what the planning zoning has already done, and I'll follow up with the community efforts. So I move to deny the petition.
Deny?
Yes.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, please.
Roll call vote to deny. Councilmember Rao.
Yay.
Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid. Councilmember Khalid. Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
The motion to deny was approved.
Next item, please.
Next item, Z20-004, item 4. Council to consider a rezoning at 0 Butner Road from R3A to CUP for the purpose of developing a residential subdivision. This is in District 2.
The petitioner here.
Would you want staff to?
Staff, I'm sorry. Staff first.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you very much. This case, Z20-007, has a concurrent variance case, CB20-002, that goes along with it. The petitioner in this case has asked for a 30-day deferral until the next meeting. Staff has no objections and would make a recommendation that we accept the request for a 30-day deferral.
On those two different ones, are you talking about both at one time?
Yes, so we would need 2 votes on the 2 cases.
Okay. Anybody for this zoning want to speak?
Michelle Battle with Battle Law, 1 West Court Square, Decatur, Georgia, 30030. We have been requested to reduce this proposed subdivision by an additional 3 lots. In order to do that, Pulte needed to do a feasibility study. That study was not going to be complete by this meeting. And so therefore we have asked for the 30-day deferral to give us time to complete the feasibility study.
Okay, any comments against, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir. We have 2 comments, 1 written, and Ms. Gloria Williams is on the call to provide comment.
Ms. Williams, we working you tonight. Come on in.
You know what? You are. You are. And it's not necessarily what I would prefer to be doing at this time. And
I understand.
As time goes on, we won't have to take such an active role because you will feel that you guys have our back. Again, for this project, my neighbors and I don't want this project because of a number of reasons, but mainly because it does nothing to improve, to raise the value of homes in the surrounding neighborhoods, particularly Walden Park, Les Jardins, Gates at Stone Lake, Union Crossing. The density doesn't allow for this project to provide homes, again, that would raise property values. And in order to do that, they need to be priced at $500,000 and up. And we stand by that desire that we want to see more development that improves and closes the gap on the average rate of home value appreciation between the city of South Fulton and North Fulton County. That's the way that we feel about it. So we really don't want this. We don't want this development as it is.
Okay.
Now, if the petitioner wants to go back to the drawing board and again put in more sizable, more substantial, more expensive homes, that's fine. But we are oversaturated with homes that are detrimental to the value in districts 2, 4, and 1. And one question that I've been posing to my neighbors is, if you decided next month to sell your home and to buy a new home, a brand new home, what would you buy? And consistently, everyone is silent. And then they say, I couldn't buy in the city of South Fulton. I'd have to move. And as a realtor, I see it every day. They go to Douglasville, they go to Cobb, they go to North Fulton, because there's nothing here that would appeal to them to buy. Okay. And so they're taking that money out of the city of South Fulton and taking it elsewhere. And developments like this do not help retention of homeowners.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Adams, do you have 2 more?
I just have 1 comment from Ms. Tanine Chisholm, who lives on Les Jardins Boulevard in District 4. She just states Z20-007, CV20-002 for 0 Button Road. Please deny this petition.
Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing. This is Ms. Gomes. We're gonna take Z20-007 first. Can I get a motion?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to defer for our next meeting.
There's a second?
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Roll call vote to defer this item to the next zoning public hearing. Roll call, Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
And then Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
Item to defer to the next zoning public hearing is approved unanimously.
Okay, Ms. Gomes, let's take CV 20-002.
I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and defer that case as well to our next meeting.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote, Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item is deferred for the next zoning public hearing.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is item 6, U21-001, council to consider a use permit at 3395 Roosevelt Highway for a hair salon.
Staff.
All right, the petitioner here is requesting a use permit for a hair salon as stated. It will be a renovation of an existing building. Staff recommendation here is for approval, and the planning commission recommendation is also for approval. I'm going to add some other information from the staff report into the verbal record here. I just want to make a mention that there are other hair salons, 4 of them within a quarter mile of the property. Just so that is information for the council to have. If we go to the next slide, you will see an aerial map of where the property is located. It is the pin drop on the left-hand side. I'm sorry, on the right-hand side there, and a picture of the building in question. I believe, was there a previous slide that had the zoning map on it? Yeah, so on the right, you can see the zoning of the property is C1, requiring a use permit. And we can then go to the next 2 slides ahead. And this is just a floor plan of the proposed renovation of the existing building. And this concludes the staff report.
Okay, the petitioner has anything to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, anybody against?
Actually, we have we have one case which I believe is a support. I'll read it.
Okay, go right ahead.
This is Miss Pamela C. Harvey, who lives on Miller Road in District 3. She states, since the area is in question only affects a small percentage of Campbell Drive located in the city of South Fulton, with the majority of Campbell Drive in East Point, I am going to approve this project by the developers and wanted the area to be completely green. But since the majority of land is on the East Point side, I was informed that if East Point approves this project on their side, the city of South Fulton side really does not have any choice.
Corey, I think that is for a case that is
that's a different case.
very much upcoming.
Right,
Okay.
that's an upcoming case.
Okay, well, no, in that case, there are no comments for this case.
Okay, I'm gonna close public hearing, Ms. Willis.
I move to defer this request for 90 days.
There a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, this is Nathan. I'm sorry to interject. I believe 90 days would be the June council meeting, and there is no June council meeting, so I just want to make note of that.
Ms. Willis, you want to change that?
I move to defer this case to the July meeting.
Okay,
Second.
Second.
properly moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, please.
Roll call vote to defer this case into the July zoning meeting. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was deferred until the July meeting.
Next item, please.
Next item is item 7, U21-002. Council to consider a use permit at 3850 Flat Shoals for a barber and beauty salon. It's located in District 5.
Staff.
Thank you very much. I will make mention that this case also has a zoning modification with it, which is M21-001 that I will go into just concurrently with this, so we can have a full understanding of the request. Again, a use permit for a barber and beauty salon, again, build out of an existing retail space. Staff recommendation was for approval, and the planning commission in this case recommended denial. We can go to the next slide, please. On the left, you will see the aerial map with the pin drop. This parcel is an existing gas station. And there is a multi-use retail building on the back of the gas station that was renovated for this. You'll see on the right a zoning map. The parcel is surrounded by property in the adjacent municipality, but this parcel is zone C1, requiring a use permit. We can go to the next slide, please. That is just a picture of the building that would go in. This retail unit is in between the two retail parcels that are on the screen that you see. And again, just a quick aerial map. You can go to the next slide, please. This is just a proposed build out of the parcel in question. I would mention that there are, double check my information here. No existing other salons or beauty parlors within a quarter mile of the site, near the site. And as far as the modification for this site, we can go to the next slide. Just to make sure they're discussed together, even though I know they will require a separate vote. This is to allow for a barber and beauty salon. The conditions that is 2016 Z0011A states that retail, I'm sorry, it states that it excludes this specific barber shop that is being asked for. So it says retail, service, commercial, and or office and accessory uses, excluding a long list of specific uses, including barber shops and beauty salons. So it would also require modification to approve this use permit. And that concludes the staff report.
Is the petitioner here?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for letting me giving me the opportunity. We've been in this area for 19 years, operating this business, the convenience store and the restaurant that is there. We've made quite a few attempts trying to locate, how should I say, a business that would be suitable in this location. And after a long search, we ended up having to come to a resolution that this would fit in quite well, considering there are no other beauty or barber shops within the area. And most of the area that is surrounding us has been mostly just restaurants and hotels and gas stations. And we are part of the community. We have supported the local community as far as Banneker High School Music and Arts Program and others similar. And I think it would be a very viable option since at the present we have not been able to find any other tenant option in that location.
Okay, thank you. Any objections, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, we do have one. Let me stop the clock. We do have one written comment in opposition. That comment is from Mr. Michael Venable, who lives on Montilly Circle in District 6. He states, I am requesting that you deny the use permit and modification for the property at 3850 Flat Shoals Road. In the previous zoning for this property, it was distinctly stated that the proposed use now requested is prohibited. This area is the interstate exit front door to the community. This community's attempt to salvage an area with multiple gas stations, low-end motels, and Union City Industrial has got to be supported. Fulton County supported this restriction. The mere fact that this use goes through the city process blatantly acknowledges a problem. This government should be an active player in assisting the area to rebound and prosper by denying this use permit and modification. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing. These are two, is this two separate, we gotta take these separately, right?
That's correct.
7 and 8. Okay, that's Mr. Reeves.
Yes, and so one of the issues, what is a major issue over there is it's a gas station with a diesel truck stop turned into a unit for retail, but no parking spaces at it. I just don't quite get how a barbershop will fit into that because they go by booth rent. They have individual booths, 5 to 6, no, I could be 10. I'm going to ask to defer this as I have spoken to the gentleman and looking for another option. So, but
Okay,
I'm in a barbershop, so I'm gonna move there to deny this.
tonight, we're talking about, right now, we're talking about U 21002.
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
So move.
It's been properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none, vote please. Mr.
And Ms.
Clerk?
Reeves, I wanted to be clarified. Originally you said defer, but this is a motion to deny.
To deny this one, yes.
Okay, motion to deny 3850 flat shows. Motion by Councilmember Reeves, second by Councilmember Willis. Roll call vote. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was denied.
Okay, Mr. Reeves, number M21001, I entertain a motion.
Yes, I move to defer that to the July meeting.
So move.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, let's vote please.
Roll call vote to defer this item to the July meeting. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was deferred unanimously.
Okay, next item, please.
Next item is item 9, U21-003. Council to consider a use permit at 5610 Old National Highway for a hair salon. This is located in District 6.
Staff?
Again, here the petition requesting use permit for a hair salon, another build out of an existing building. Staff recommendation here was for approval, and the planning commission again recommended denial. I want to add from the staff report, there are 15 hair salons on Old National, one within a quarter mile, and 10 of them within 1 mile. We can go to the next slide, please. A little aggressive with the clicking on that one. There we go. The aerial map, you can see with the pin drop is the building this will be located in. And on the right, you can see highlighted in blue, the zoning of the parcel again is C1, or I'm sorry, this one is C2, requiring a use permit for the hair salon. We can go to the next slide. This is a overall sketch of the interior of the building. This would be the concept of the individual salon suites. I know a lot of salons are sort of transitioning to this instead of having the bowls and station out. Each room is privately developed, so the individual stylist can rent an entire room out and have their own individual space in the salon. And that concludes the staff report.
Okay, anyone for this item?
Yes, Oliver Williford here.
Go ahead.
Yes, I like to appreciate you guys for giving me an opportunity to speak on this. I've owned this property for over 6 years. I've tried several other businesses to put inside of the facility, but with the current market conditions, it's very difficult. It is my desire to create luxury salon suites that individuals can rent, and that'll further drive revenue to the city because each of those individuals would have to have licenses with the city. I like to further convey that as an African American, we own very little of the dirt on Old National. And even though that shouldn't be considered within itself, it should be taken into consideration that we're providing a service within the community. And it is very important that we put businesses within the city that the constituents would support. I really feel that this is a business that's in alignment with the demographics of the city. And I hope that you guys can see that it would be a good business that falls in line with the guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, any against, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, sir. We have one comment received in opposition. That comment was received from Mr. Michael Venable, who lives on Montilly Circle in District 6. He states, as stated in the staff report, there are significant registered like uses 15 in a mile of this location at 5610 Old National Highway. This stereotyping of an area drives away good development and hurts the community value. There was a previous moratorium on like uses in city areas, which justifies the concern and need. I am requesting this application be denied as the area's viable prosperity is on the line. The lack of balance on the commercial corridor as well as the residential area is problematic. That completes the comment.
All right, I'm gonna close public hearing. Mr. Khalid.
I've been talking with Mr. Wilfer about this, so I'm going to make a motion to defer until the October zoning meeting.
So moved.
So it's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk?
Roll call vote to defer to the October zoning meeting. Councilmember Rao,
Yes.
Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid, Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was deferred unanimously.
All right, next item, please.
Next item is item 10, M21-002, council to consider a zoning modification at 1215 New Hope Road to allow for the hosting of a youth program in a fellowship hall. This is located in District 1.
Staff?
Thank you very much. And I will state right off that staff is most certainly in support of this modification request. This is a request from Bethel United Methodist Church. I'm asking for a modification to allow for the hosting of a youth program in a new fellowship hall. I would also add, we think this will provide a great service and be of great benefit to the community, as I say, in a completely unbiased way. The reason that we're asking for this modification request is that the previous zoning for the site was written with extreme specificity, and I can't really offer any explanation as to why, but there was an agreement in the current zoning rather to only host any after-school programs in the existing church. And so because they're putting it in a new building, for some reason, it was written there, and so our hands were tied in terms of issuing any business license or allowances here. But again, staff recommends approval for this application. On the left, you'll see the aerial map with a pin drop for the church. On the right, you will see the zoning of the site, the zoning map. That is residential R3. And the last slide, please. You will see the site plan for the new fellowship hall they will be constructing. And this is in for engineering review, and there are no objections from engineering at this time. And that concludes the staff report.
Okay, is the petitioner here?
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have the developer, which is the designer, which is Cedric Drayton, and the pastor of the church, Jacqueline Rose Tucker, are on the call as well.
Okay. Does anyone want to say anything? Pastor Rose Tucker, you want to say something?
Sure, I would hope that this would be approved post haste. We've been waiting for a long time. And this really is about providing ministry to the community for our young people, for our young adults, offering them Wi-Fi to catch up with their schoolwork since COVID has been going on. And it is only going to be to us an asset to the community.
Okay. Anyone else want to say anything on the affirmative side? If not, anything against, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir, we did not receive any comments in opposition.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Ms. Rao?
I make a motion to approve M21-002.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote.
Roll call vote to approve. Councilmember Rao.
Yes.
Councilmember Gums.
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid,
Yes.
and Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
That item was approved unanimously.
Well, good. Congratulations, Pastor. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Mayor. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support from the council. Thank you so very much.
You're
All right.
welcome.
You.
Mr. Clerk?
Next item is the last item on the agenda, which is executive session.
Do we have anything else we need executive session?
I don't
for?
have anything, Mrs. Attorney, do you, Mrs. Jones, do you have anything?
No, sir, I don't have anything.
Like to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Properly moved to second, any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Rao. Councilmember Gums,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilliard,
Definitely.
Councilmember Reeves,
Aye.
Councilmember Khalid.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:46 p.m.
Thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Yay!
Have a good evening. Thank you all so much.
All right. Good night.
Okay.
All right.
Good night.